What's going on, Moon Gang? I'm very excited to bring you this interview with Mark Kohrs. Throughout the interview, we talk about some of his battles with legitimate Wall Street titans. Then we discuss some of the illicit and highly unethical actions performed by some prime brokers and market makers. Then we hear his thoughts on what potentially may have really gone down between the likes of Robinhood and Citadel Securities in January of this year as it relates to both GameStop and AMC. I really think that you're going to enjoy it. And just very quickly, one word of caution. Some of the language throughout the interview is a bit colorful, just so you know. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us on this today, Mr. Mark Kohrs. I am particularly excited for all the things we're about to dive into, because when I was doing a deep dive on you, you very much seem to be a worn-torn, battle-tested trader who has legitimately stood toe-to-toe with, I'm talking some serious people within the entire Wall Street world. And because of that, it seems like one of the core tenets you always seem to be going on is looking for people who are doing things that are nefarious, illegal, and illicit, and you are more than happy to call it out. And through your very, very storied career, I'm telling everyone out there, give this a quick Google search. Like, the things we're getting into this are very much just scraping the surface. I think that you're able to give us a unique insight, because this ape community, a lot of what we're talking about is exactly that we feel like the trading, the field that we're playing on is not fair. There's manipulation, there's illicit things going on. And I think you particularly have a unique insight into that. And I'm more than happy to kind of get out some of your knowledge in this interview. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I enjoy your stuff. And there's a lot of stuff out there that people think about me that's true, and there's a whole lot out there that's false. So the one thing is I'm a man of my word. And when I say it, if I'm going to cock it, I'm going to throw it. So what I say is the truth, and it's verified. So I'm excited for this. So anything goes, throw it all out there. There's no script. There's no nothing. So the harder the question, the better.
All right. So just to set a little bit of a foundation, when I was doing a deep dive on you, I saw some things that it seemed like they were a little bit weird. It didn't add up to me. So out of the gate, have you now or ever been short AMC or GameStop ever?
Never in my life. I'm 61 years old. I've never been short a share of either of those. I've never been short BB or any of the other MEME stocks. And it's not I have absolutely zero interest in those names. I don't go after, I view those companies as benign companies. They're not out there to hurt anybody. They may not be out there to help anyone, but I mean, AMC is a movie theater. There's nothing wrong with being in the movie theater business. Movie theater business is fine. It may grow, it may not grow. They may grow fast, they may grow slow, they may decline. There's nothing that AMC does that hurts a soul. There's nothing GME does that hurts a soul. Some people think they're obsolete. Some people think they go out of business, but that's what the market's for. So I, in terms of business-wise, I really could care less on either one of them.
Okay, but with that being said, obviously, with like some of the words, if we're really getting into it, and it's not hard to find it, you have shorted some companies. And when I was like seeing what was going on and your reasoning for shorts, you've kind of come up with a unique way where you describe shorts in 3 different buckets. Could you share that with everyone?
Sure. The kind of stuff I do, and there's been 2 Harvard Business School cases written about me. One is about Novastar, which is a subprime mortgage lender. They're out of business. And they did all sorts of horrifically bad things to financially unsophisticated people, which just drives me crazy. And another one was Signet Jewelers, who before the management changed, and think I was responsible for the old management being out, would charge people ridiculous rates of interest and all sorts of fees for jewelry. They wouldn't make any money selling the jewelry. They'd make money on all the ancillary services. So Harvard wrote 2 business cases about me there, and I'm happy I made changes. But by and large, I go after frauds. I go after people who are trying to cheat others, whether that's the government and overcharging people for drugs, or mistreating the VA, or selling unsophisticated people timeshares, or money launderers, or people who engage in kiddie porn. People who deserve to be wiped off the planet are tend to be folks who I go after. That's one basket. The other basket are people, let's just say like Melvin, who thinks a company is going to be obsolete or have problems or go out of business. So they'll short the stock at a level, let's call it 50, and they'll think it's going to go to 5, 10, 2, 3, things like that. People who think the earnings estimates are too high, people who think that management's incompetent, people who think technologically it'll put you out of business. And there's nothing wrong with that. Where I think has created a lot of these problems are these so-called activist short sellers. And the activist short sellers tend to find companies and they come with these hyperbolic stories that when you read it, scares the living shit out of people, scares people to death. So they read it. You hear that dog barking? It scares the crap out of people. And folks who are not sophisticated in the market read something horrible with a price target of 0. And they don't have the wherewithal to research it. So they just sell the stock. And the stock whooshes down and the person who writes the report sadly covers the same day. And then it all blows over and the stock a lot of time goes up between 5 and 20 times. And that kind of bullshit, I just hate. That kind of stuff I hate. I wrote an op-ed in the Financial Times a year and a half ago. People read it and people in the short selling business started screaming at me. And I told them to go fuck themselves. I said, I think it's horrible what you do to people. And the whole basis of that is to encourage Joe Sixpack to sell their stock, to panic people into selling stock. Because I think the individual, if they just think clearly, and as I like to say, if you can explain what you're in and explain it to a 10th grader in a paragraph or less, you're probably onto something pretty good. And institutions and big money guys think the Joe Sixpacks are stupid and they look down upon them. And I just think that's wrong. I think it's wrong because everyone is entitled to a point of view. Everyone can think, everyone can come up with a good idea. And a lot of times simpler is better. So those are the 3 buckets. There's about 3 people left who do what I used to do because I don't do this shit anymore because it's too dangerous. And we can get into that. Going after horrifically bad guys, hurting society, screwing with people, ripping people off for their own financial good. Then there's fundamental guys who pick on names. Then there's the activist guys. So those are pretty much the 3 buckets I see.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, even though obviously you really are like an investigator. That's what you're doing a deep dive in all this stuff and you're finding people who are fraudulent, but it seems to sometimes also go the other way. I saw that you were kind of intertwined with the entire Overstock debacle. Can you just give us like the high level cliff notes of that scenario?
So on Overstock, I go back with Overstock to about 2003 when we were first shorted, when we thought the thing was a mess and we thought Byrne was crazy. And Byrne is crazy. I love him. And I've gone from enemy with Byrne to pals with Byrne to enemy with Byrne. Now I think I'm neutral with Byrne. We thought their business was really a mess and they were ripping people off. And my former partner really got into it with Byrne, arguing publicly. And I told him not to because we're going to get sued. And the reason why is Byrne comes from a family where he's worth billions of dollars. That's 1. 2, he is crazy, which means he has absolutely no bounds. And you never get in a fight with a crazy person or an argument with a crazy person. The argument wise, because people watching won't know who the crazy one is. And this guy can fight to the death because he has plenty of money. So he's a very dangerous enemy. And at the time in 2003, 4 in there, his business was fucked up. I mean, he had no controls. He was making stuff up. He was telling stuff that wasn't true. And if my former partner would have just kept his mouth shut, we would have been fine. But he kept going, and we ended up getting sued on the basis that it wasn't naked shorting. It was the basis that my partner wrote the research for another firm, which wasn't true. But you can say whatever you want in a lawsuit, and as long as you survive motion to dismiss, it keeps on going. So they sued us for $1 billion. So if you've ever been a party of a personal lawsuit where you're on the hook for $1 billion and you're not worth $1 billion, that's a real wake up call. And through all the stuff, because we don't have all day, we settled it for $6 million because it would have cost me $8 million to go to trial and get the thing thrown out. Mm-hmm. So if it would cost me 8 on an uncertain outcome, I'd rather pay 6 for the thing to be over. But then where it started getting exciting is afterwards. How did it actually happen? Afterwards, when I settled with Byrne, I said, now that we've settled, you picked on the wrong guy, because we were the victim of the naked shorting, because Goldman, who was loaning us the shares, never borrowed them. Mm-hmm. And you should go after Goldman and the prime brokers, who you should have always gone after, and not us. You had the right idea, but you knocked on the wrong house. There was nothing in the house. You were right to find bin Laden on that block, but you just went to the wrong house. This is the house you should go to. So he ended up suing Goldman, and he ended up suing Merrill. And there's a famous deposition that I'm in that the Goldman lawyer screwed up and is unsealed. And it's available for anyone to get on the internet. You just Google Mark Cohoda's Goldman Overstock deposition. It'll come right up, and it's a tremendous read. And I exposed what the prime brokers do and how they're naked short and how they don't borrow the shares. And I think Byrne collected between Merrill and Goldman $50 million. So Byrne and I became pals. And then time went on, and I thought Overstock got too cheap, and I bought a ton of Overstock between 10 and 15, and now the thing's 80. So I've Overstock has been part of my life for the last 20 years. So I don't have any tattoos, but I could get an Overstock tattoo. So yeah, I'm 61, and I've been doing this professionally since 82, and I've been doing it screwing around since probably 76. When you go at it that long, like Nolan Ryan, mm-hmm. You set the record for wins, you set the record for losses, you set the record for strikeouts, you set the record for walks, because you've been doing it so damn long and you've seen so much stuff.
Exactly. That's a fascinating story. And I just need to rewind a little bit, because I know all the apes watching this right now, their ears perked up. You're talking about a prime broker and naked shorting. There are people frothing at the teeth to learn more exactly about what happened and how it happened, and if there's a way that there's like obvious signs of it. So the more you could share about like specifically naked shorting and people going short without the broker ever finding the shares, I can guarantee people watching right now, that's exactly what they want to know about.
Okay. So I've been on all parts of it, and this is a perfect forum to explain it. And then I'll at least give people my judgment. You can come to your own conclusion. In the era we were talking about back then, in the 2003, 4, 5 thing. This is before there was this Reg SHO and forced buy-in thing. So what happened was, we as a customer, Copper River, would go to Goldman and say, can we borrow 100,000 shares of Overstock? And they'd say yes. And they would charge us probably 10% annually to borrow those shares. So if we borrowed $100 million of Overstock, we'd have to pay them $10 million in fees, as any of the stocks we would borrow. It is 100%, full stop, illegal for a customer, and I can either be an institutional customer or a person, to short a stock without a borrow. The computer now will not let you enter the order. So if I log on to my Interactive Broker account and tried to sell a stock, it would not enter the order unless it was borrowed there. Okay. Same thing with Schwab, same thing with Morgan Stanley, same thing with everybody. So it is full stop illegal for the customer, the hedge fund, to short a stock without a borrow. Mm-hmm. Goldman settled with the SEC when they went after them. Goldman paid a fine to Byrne, or paid a penalty to Byrne. Goldman would create the shares by running conversions, by trading in the market for stock to get the fake shares to loan to us that they never had. And if they charged us 12% negative rebate, it would probably cost them 4% to set up the trade. So it was Goldman who was on the hook, who never had the shares, not the customer. Now, Byrne and crew made a huge deal to the SEC about this, and the rule changed sometime in 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. So in this whole drama, if you will, there was a rule change in 2008, 2009, which made what Goldman did very hard and more illegal and torturous for them. Mm-hmm. So this we ended up being short without a borrow, but it wasn't us because we paid in those years $100 million in borrow fees for stocks on a fake locate. Mm-hmm. So the real disadvantaged party was us, because we paid $100 million for a service that never appeared. So Goldman ripped us off and other clients off. So the prime brokers are as bad can be, but they they rip institutions off. Robinhood rips off their customers. Citadel rips off everybody. But it's all a matter of trying to facilitate a transaction for money. So when people casually throw out naked shorts that there's more short out there than there is in the float, that may be true, but those shares can also be created by option market makers. And it's totally legal for option market makers, Citadel probably being one of the biggest ones, to be short without a borrow. Because if they ever get questioned on it, they say they have to maintain a fair and orderly market. Mm-hmm. And when options in GME or AMC or BB or whatever the name is are trading tens of thousands of contracts, if you and I are market makers, right? You and I are market makers. We can't be at risk for $1 billion worth of stock, because if it moves the slightest degree against us, you and I are bust. We can't do that. So what we have to do is we're constantly running hedges against our option book. So if someone is buying a load of puts, you and I have to be short the stock against the puts. Okay. Because if the bottom falls out, right, we'll lose billions of dollars. So we have to be short. And you say, hey, Mark, we've sold all these puts. We got to get short the stock. And I'll just say short the stock. And you'll say, doesn't it bother you and your conscience? We can't borrow it. And I'd say, homie, look, right? We're within the law that we don't need to borrow the stock. And unless we have our ratios right and the bottom drops out of this thing, you and I are fucking dead, right? And this is our job, right? So if we have 29,000 puts that we're on the hook for in GME or AMC or BB, we have to be short a similar amount, because if this thing goes down, we get wiped out. However, if it starts going up and going up a lot, you and I then have a huge problem, because we're short all this stock, right? The puts all of a sudden become worthless because the stock's moving higher. Then we have another problem. So the whole thing with this getting people very short without the borrow, that's sort of the foreplay to the sex show. The sex show is what happens when these things get dislocated. And that's why, now that I have a little incremental time on my hands, I'm trying to help out to go back to the crime scene, which was back in January, mm-hmm. and not today. And I've gone on a couple Twitter Spaces thing, and I did some stuff, and I've been in constant contact with Senator Warren's office since February, trying to lend a hand and point people in the right direction. But the real crime scene was what went down and what hurt all these people in January, which is what I'm trying to focus on. When you ladies and gentlemen focus on all this naked shorting stuff, it's what the citadels of the world want you to focus on, because they can say that the naked shorting in these names was perfectly legal due to, if you look on page 5, Reg 6504-7 shows we could be naked short. So it's a convoluted, complicated thing that even I've been doing this a long time, I can explain it, but it's very hard to articulate it.
Okay.
So
just from to help clarify it a little bit, just so everyone watching is on the same page. So, of course, we could talk about market makers such as Virtu and Citadel Securities. Let's save that for a little bit better later in it, just because their leeway is much greater, much greater of what you could do as a market maker. So, for a little bit, let's focus on these prime brokers and how they can almost seemingly get away legally with an illegal borrow type of a scenario, and just the highlight of the options. So, you're saying hedge fund calls them up and they're like, yes, I want to short. And the prime broker, they're like, they're greedy. They want that business. They know they don't have those shares. So to artificially make it look like they have those shares, I'm assuming what they load up on out of the money calls, or they're selling deep in the money puts to just artificially fake the position. And they're like, we're borrowing against that.
They buy deep in the money puts. Okay, they buy deep in the money puts, then they sell a call to basically create the shares at the last sale to sell. They basically create the shares by buying a deep in the money put and selling a call so they can create the share at $32.50 with the stock at $31.70, and they keep the 80 cents as their VIG, plus they charge commission, right?
Gotcha.
They're fine. And everything is dandy as long as things don't get out of hand. If the bottom falls out of the stock, it's great because the deep in the money put covers you.
Okay.
The huge problem is when the stock just absolutely takes off, because then all of a sudden the put becomes worthless, but the short call, the tail of the short call will kill you.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you're short a call at 40, right, and you're in there to collect the money to set up the stock, and let's just use GameStop, for example, and we'll run back to GameStop in a minute. When the stock goes, so Goldman figures out, and Goldman's not going to sue me, but I'm just using Goldman as an example. You can use Charles Schwab. Goldman in their computers say, there's a 98% chance this thing will never get above 40. So we're okay, and we'll give you credit short the 40 call, right? But the second this thing blows out and the put becomes worthless, the tail of the call is what killed people. It got them short and it killed people. So let's say you're Melvin. And Melvin Plotkin, nice enough guy, but he's arrogant, he got very greedy, and he was way over leveraged. And his mistake in GameStop is he just should have covered it at 3 or 4 or 5 and gone home, right? And as I like to say, people will pay $3 just to watch two rats fuck. And the problem is when you get greedy and you don't cover it at 3, and then it goes to 7, then it goes to 10. He says in his mind, I'm so right on this thing and people are so wrong. I want to short some more at 10. So he calls up Goldman and says, I want to short some more, take an order to short the stock. Sorry, Gabe, we can't borrow it. Can't borrow any more shares. He says, okay, if I can't borrow any shares, I'm going to buy notional $1 million, 1 million shares worth of puts. So that's 10,000 puts, right? The stock's at 10. So let's say he wants to buy 10,000. It's April 2nd. He wants to buy 10,000 of the May 15 puts, right? And you and I are market makers, right? You and I are market makers in GameStop. So we get an order, buy 10,000 GameStop May 15 puts, stocks at 10. The puts are worth 5. And then you and I say, what should the premium be? And I'd say, this is a volatile ass stock, 3. So we'd say, okay, we'll offer the 10,000 puts at 8, right? They're worth 5, 3 premium. And Plotkin says, fine, I'll buy them, right? Okay. So you and I do the trade, $3 premium, type it in the computer. The computer says that at 10, being fully in the money, you and I need to be short 890,000 shares, right? To offset the risk. Because if the bottom drops out of this thing, I don't want to be out $10. Do you? You want to lose $10 on a trade? No. Exactly. We're in the business of making a spread. Mm-hmm. So the market maker goes and shorts 890,000 shares, right? Puts pressure on the stock because you're putting sell pressure on the stock. Do we have it borrowed? Fuck no, because you can't borrow it. But we need to hedge it. Yeah. We need to sell the shares because that's the business we're in. We're in the business of hedging option trades. Okay. Just like if someone wanted to buy the in-the-money calls, we'd have to go buy 891,000 shares of stock. You and I, we don't give a fuck, right? We're there to make a market. We're independent. We've seen the stock go up or down. We're in there to make our spreads, right? So Plotkin buys 10,000 puts, 1 million shares. You and I are short 890. A day later, all of a sudden, the stock's 14.5, right? And Plotkin's losing. And all of a sudden, these puts are worth a lot less. Yeah. And instead of you and I being short 890, the computer says at 14, we should only be short 200, okay. Right? Because you're closer to the money line. So then we have to go on the market and buy 600,000 shares. So when we go on the market to buy the stock starts moving up. So by the time we're done, okay, this thing's 16.25. Then the computer says you should only be short 38,000 shares. So we buy more stock, and now the stock's 17. Okay, this is what's gone on. Now you and I have made, because we're making in the premium, even though this is painful. Plotkin comes back or someone else comes back the next day and says, the stock's rallied. I want to buy 20,000 of the June 20 puts, right? And we say, here we go again, right? And we keep rinsing and repeating. At some point in time when this thing detached, market makers were short so much stock against no borrow. The margin requirement in the melt up absolutely burned the wires out. Because you and I are talking, because the stock used to move 4 to 5, 6 to 8, 8 to 7, right? Just small moves. But when you take a situation from 25 to 450, these are moves that have never been recorded in history. And the leverage that the market makers and the funds used completely and utterly melted down the system. Wow. And the people who were long were making a fortune at the expense of what they said were the suits. But the suits were the market makers. The suits were the imbecile hedge funds who were losing their ass. They lost their ass, right? So there's no bigger penalty for them than money, and they were losing a ton of money. But it was because, when everyone says naked shorts, it's fine to say it, but it was a market maker driven game to take and hedge their exposure on the puts. 100%.
Very, very interesting.
100%. And the reason the government and the media and politicians don't want to go there is when the truth comes out, and it will come out. It will come out. I don't know when, but it will. People will realize that this whole thing that I'm now trying to fight, this flicking of the switch, was only done to keep the Citadels and others in the game. It was a wealth transfer from the people who owned GameStop and AMC and the calls to others. Because if it would have kept going any longer, you would have melted it down. Because the hook in all this is when Griffin invested his billions to Melvin.
Yes. I want to talk about this.
And he said that Melvin is one of the greatest investors of his generation. He's full of more shit than a Christmas turkey. Because Gabe was in business for a while, and if he was such a great investor, invest with him day one. Invest with him year two. Invest with him year three. Don't invest with him when he has 2 days left to be in business. It was money to keep Plotkin alive, because if they would have melted the stock up another day, all hell would have broken loose. The only people who would have been happy were the holders of GME and AMC, because the market was starting to sort of get a little funky and unwind, because people realized that if the leverage got unwound at the Citadel level, there'd be huge fucking problems.
Now, sorry to interrupt there, but do you think it's theoretically possible that Citadel Securities, the world's largest market maker, and I would argue that it's a duopoly right now between both Citadel and Virtu, but at that time they had much more market share. Do you think it's theoretically possible they realized that they were leveraged to the tits, it was going against them, and right now the court documents are saying we did not pressure Robinhood? Could be true. Do you think it's possible that they called up some regulatory body that then talked to the NSCC and said, get Robinhood in fucking check before everything goes tits up? Is that a possibility, a likelihood? Like, what are your thoughts on Citadel Securities reaching out to the government saying this could end very, very poorly for everyone?
100%.
Whoa.
100%.
Wow.
1,000%. And this is why when I talk to Senator Warren's people, I connect the dots very simply that it was probably Ken Griffin or someone at Citadel, and someone volunteered to do something for me to come up and create a document of how many government people, high up government people now work at Citadel, including Bernanke, including SEC guys, including DOJ guys. It becomes a revolving door. He is so leveraged. I'm pretty sure he's Bank of America's. And that's a kind of a real place, Bank of America. I think he's Bank of America's largest customer. So they are so leveraged, Citadel, so leveraged that this had the chance of putting them in a very, very, very bad spot. And now, since they're considered a too big to fail guy, he basically said, and again, this is my opinion, gang. So don't hold me to it, but I think I can back it up. He probably went either to the New York Fed or had someone go to the New York Fed and say, look, guys, this GameStop AMC experiment has turned Frankenstein-like. It's gotten out of hand. They're going to put Melvin out of business, which we don't give a fuck about, but we're going to have to bail him out. So he's no longer buying this stuff. But unless this bullshit stops tomorrow, we do not have the capital to take option expiration at $400. So you do whatever the fuck you need to do to slow this shit down. And Vlad, who I wouldn't trust running a lemonade stand, that guy, he is just a face of something. The guy who runs Robinhood is Gallagher, and Gallagher is a former SEC commissioner. So their only option, what they should have done if there was an issue, is just halt the stock, right? They should have just said, we at Robinhood have a margin issue. We're going to raise $3 billion in 90 minutes from Virtue, Perchu, Squirchu, the Pep Boys. And that's that. And then we're going to turn it on. But for the next 90 minutes, we're halting trading in the following names.
Okay.
You can't sell. You can't buy, right? We're calling a truce. We are closing the airport. No one can land. No one can take off. Everyone sit in your seats.
Okay.
And when the airport's clear, we'll let the planes go. And what should have been done, if I was king, is you shut down the stocks. You say, we have a margin issue. We're going to solve the margin issue. Don't worry. All's good. But we can't allow trading in these stocks for 90 minutes. Once the money clears, trading resumed. And that is the market I've seen ever since I've been in it.
Okay.
From a runner on an option exchange to running a hedge fund to just being a regular guy, right? When there was 9/11 and there was panic because of the terrorism. How old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay. So at 9/11,
I was young.
You were barely learning to read.
Yeah.
You're pretty damn impressive for 27, I must say.
I appreciate that.
You get, and I don't throw around compliments either.
Thank you.
So I've seen the exchanges halted, right? I've seen, at 9/11, I think they halted the market for a week.
Yeah,
they just said no go, right? Which is the right thing to do. So people wouldn't panic, so money wouldn't move, so everyone could calm down and think. And I've seen them do the same thing in Europe. And I've seen them halt individual stocks. Never, ever have I seen this one-sided trading to specifically screw one class of individuals. That is the part that has a guy like me pissed off. That is the part that has a guy like me willing to drop what I'm doing because I just finished off an enemy. So I have a little time on my hands. A bad person I finished off. That's what enables me to help these folks to the extent that I can. But I don't get, let's make this clear. I'm not being paid by anybody. I don't have positions in any of these names. I don't work for anybody. I was part of a movie that was filmed in Portland, Oregon 3 weeks ago. I paid for my airplane ticket to Portland from Montana. I paid for my hotel in Portland. I paid for my food in Portland. I didn't pay for my beer or whiskey I drank with those clowns, but I paid for everything. So no one can accuse me of being paid by anybody or being owned by anybody or running trap for anybody. I'm my own guy. I speak my own mind. And if I say it once, that's all I really should need to say it. Some of you guys or some of the people out there keep running this false narrative, which is bullshit. And I'll say it a million times if I have to, but don't piss me off too much where I just say, you guys are beyond help, right? I've said this, I'm trying for you. I only put myself at risk here. There's nothing for me to gain other than 1, keeping the system from breaking down, 2, keeping people who work hard for their money from getting screwed, 3, keeping people who work hard for their hard-earned money getting screwed, because that's what really means something to me. Yeah. Because when I was in Portland filming this thing, what got my attention was the horrifically horrible stories of these people getting completely and utterly rat-fucked. And they were rat-fucked by the man, and they were rat-fucked by Citadel et al. And Griffin's worth tens of billions of dollars and owns blocks of New York. And it's just not the way, 1, free market should work. 2, that's not the way you treat people. And finally, I'm a financially sophisticated stock market motherfucker. It is not a fair fight, me against you. It is just not, right? Because I will win 99% of the time if you want to bet against me. Because it's what I do. Yeah. But it's not fair, right? And I'm not interested in not fair. I'm not interested in taking batting practice against a little leaguer if I'm a pro baller. I'm interested in taking it against the best. And what these guys did was they completely and utterly screwed this whole class of investors. And I fucking hate it. And I hate these guys, folks, as much, if not more than you. Probably more. Because I know what they've done over the years. And I'm in. And I'm in to try to help. And I'm in to try to move the needle.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I can honestly say that when I announced that I would be interviewing you, there was a lot of excitement, and people have actually shown on this. I mean, I'm here with you. Like, I see it in social media. There's obviously always these assholes, and people like to troll. But on that, whenever you're seeing some of this negative rhetoric attacking you, please understand that there's a lot of people who've proven that there actually seems to be within this group some infiltration. There, in fact, at one point, people were using the profile pictures of people who passed away at that Vegas shooting, acting as they were apes and like stirring up drama. So as you're going through this, and I get it right there, like some of it is bouncing the fact of your financial knowledge and what you're diving into. The other part is the social media. Please understand some of that social media is complete and utter bullshit. People purposely trying to fuck with this group.
Oh, I get it. I have 12,600 people blocked on Twitter. So if anyone knocks on the door and as much looks at me cross-eyed, they're instantly blocked. So I put up with nothing. No, I get that. But the point is, and I think what I've said, and the more I think about it, I'm really getting geeked about it, is I think there's somewhere between 1 million and 2 million people in this group, if you will. There's a lot of folks.
Potentially up to 4 million from the AMC estimates, but millions.
That's fine. But let's just whatever the highest number is, cut it in half, or cut it in 2/3, just so everyone's credible. All those people vote, and elections are close, and House and Senate races are close, and if people organize. And it's not collusion. It's not collusion for like-minded people to discuss or organize. And I'm not saying peacefully at a park, because people end up getting shot. But over the internet and things like that, people get together and organize and push people on this issue. This is going to be a big issue in the next election. And it's a popular issue because no politician is going to want to take the side of Citadel against a Joe Sixpack. No one's going to want to take the side against a 20 to 50 billion type of group, against guys who make minimum wage or above, or work nights, or do whatever, or teachers to do it. It's a horrifically bad political opportunity. And all I'd want for you guys, and all I'd want going forward, is the markets are free, the markets are fair, the markets aren't manipulated, and never in your guys' lifetime will they pull this shit again. And you may be right on AMC, and you may be right on GME, and you may be wrong. And if you win, kudos. And if you lose, it's unfortunate, but at least it's a fair fight. All you ask for is a fair fight. And what went down was so bad and should leave such a scar and should piss people off so much that, to me, it's a worthy cause. It's worthy. It's worthy of my energy. It's worthy of my time. Yeah. It's worthy of the fight.
And even right there, like obviously millions of people are resonating with it, just because right there it's cheated, stolen from, lied to. It's just all we want, I think, especially on the back of the pandemic and people remembering 2008 and just how the government and Wall Street interact. People just want a fair shot. They're saying, hey, life has been particularly shitty lately. Just give me a fair shot at this thing. And I think that's the thing, is like, we just want to play for fair. And that's why I think even you, it seems like we're going against the people. Just give us a fair shot. At the most inherent level, it's this David and Goliath, but all of a sudden in this David scenario, I get it. A lot of people just join the market, but there's power in numbers. I'm seeing the value in community. And yeah, maybe at average, it's not the most sophisticated group, but it's been going on for 10 months. People are starting to learn. It's a hive mind amount of knowledge, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But one of the main questions right here, if our theory is correct, and we're asking for regulation, and we're trying to get the ears of some important government, political, regulating officials, all of that, if there truly was that collusion between Ken Griffin and someone that said, you got to get Robinhood in fucking control, how does that get surmounted if it's that powerful and that deep into the state Wall Street political establishment? How do we uncover that rock and fix it?
Well, you know what? That is an excellent question. You are on top of your game, Holmes. That is an excellent question. So what I suggest, and this is my opinion, is The second the gang, or whatever we want to call the group, comes with stuff that's not true, not facts, the party ends. They'll say, enough, right? What you're saying is just factually not true. So you have to focus on 2, 3, or 4 key issues and take all of the conspiracy theorists, naked short, all that crap, and just leave it at home. Because people, A, will glaze over, B, it's unethical as shit, but it's legal. And you're not there to change the law. We're not here, folks, to change the law. We can't change the law. But what you can do is raise $5 a person and put it in a special bank account, and don't do this GoFundMe or this loosey-goosey shit. And you bring in real lobbyists who know how to talk to Warren and Sherrod Brown and Tester and Toomey and all these people. Real guys who do this shit for a living and say, look, okay, our group is 4 million strong. Of the 4 million, 90% are going to vote in the 2022 elections. So this is going to be a real group that's going to vote. And they're going to vote on this issue. So if you have a representative in southwestern Colorado running for re-election and it's iffy, we'd suggest you get on board, because that guy is going to get, or gal is going to get, their ass knocked out. So I suggest you get on board and it become an issue. And it's a popular issue, the regular guy against the billionaires. And the good news is, all you're asking for is that 1 week of January of what went on. That 1 week. You're not asking to dig up Lincoln's tomb. You're not asking, from 1704. You're not asking to find the Tahiti fly from the bow of the boat. You just want the trades which are on record. And you want email, and you want telephone records, and you want to recreate the crime scene to find out what went on. And if it's all legit, and it's all fine, and it's all in order, we'll all go home. Sorry for your inconvenience, right? We came, checked it out, there was nothing there, we're going home, right? Sorry to waste your time. But if there's something there, right? And what happened this week in the 650,000 Washington Redskin emails catches the Oakland Raider coach talking racist, doing his whole shit, and that guy gets fired. He gets fired in 1 fucking day, and he's not even with the Redskins. So the question is, when you dig up, if there's 650,000 emails between the Fed, the New York Fed, Citadel, Robinhood, however it went down, because it all has to be recorded, you guys want to know and bring this shit into record. You want to figure out exactly what happened, because collectively, you 1 to 4 million lost billions collectively, and ruined lives. So we're this story doesn't go back years, right? We're not looking for a class period from 1968 to 1984. We're looking for fucking 1 week of what went down. And we want it focused, and we want it specific. And we're not interested in tinfoil theories. We don't care about hypothecating shares or naked. It doesn't fucking matter for what you're trying to do. Okay. It's the one. This is my opinion, and I have no skin in the game, right? I'm not. No side is putting me up to anything other than me of me. So if you figure out exactly what went on in that week to force the switch getting flipped, that is where the action is. That is all that you guys and gals should want to and need to know. That's all it is.
So I guess with that, the one thing I would, on a personal basis, push back a little bit on is I'm very much a fan of using various microphones that echo our voice to get some sort of political leader on our side to do a forensic look into what happened. But on top of it, whether it goes our way or doesn't, I also think it's necessary for our group, the Ape Nation, to come with a very concise set of measurable things. So just for example, like let's say there was 3 things on the list. No more payment for order flow. We want more orders done on a lit exchange. In terms of 13F filings, why in the world are shorts not reported? Blows my mind. And let's say, for example, to me, we have the technology. Why do we not have instantaneous settlement? So beyond it, all the other issues that maybe some of the more tinfoil hats are wearing, I feel like those are a list of 3 measurable things that on top of a forensic look into January, the community could argue for. And right now there are some bills that are currently being discussed, but you never know if it's going to get out of committee, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like if we can attach it to a political leader and a group, a bipartisan group that could do the forensic look, and let's just say, for example, those 3 things, I'm sure there could be a bigger list, a smaller list, yada, yada, yada. To me, that seems like a strong way to attack it.
I think that's a way to attack it in round 2.
Okay.
In round 2. The sooner the gang can figure out what led to the flip switching, if there was something nefarious, the sooner round 2 can pass. The sooner people will pay for round 2. So I'll give you a conversation, a hypothetical conversation between me and a Democratic senator's staff. Hypothetical, right? I'll just talk to myself. We talk about these issues, and I say, well, you guys have subpoena power. So if it becomes a hot button issue for you guys, you can issue subpoenas. And they say, we have subpoena power, but it has to be on a bipartisan basis. So let's say Senator Kohrs is all for it and can go to the Democratic leader, Sherrod Brown, and Sherrod Brown's in on it. No problem, right? Mm-hmm. The Democrats have it bought in. But then Toomey, who's the Republican leader out of Pennsylvania, he may say, over my dead body. I'm not doing this. This is a waste of time. It's a waste of effort. And unless the Democratic leader and the Republican leader both agreed to subpoenas and or discovery, you get nothing. Nothing can move forward. So there has to be extraordinary pressure put on Toomey, the Republicans, and his gang to at least get discovery on what happened. And I'd suggest a winner take all basis. If there's nothing here, if everything was in order, if it's totally okay for the CEO of Robinhood to get on TV and lie, if that's totally okay, then that's the new rule of the road. Mm-hmm. But if it's not okay, we sure have something to discuss. And then after that becomes payment for order flow, short reporting, zero settlement. Then afterwards.
Gotcha. Okay.
But let's have a murder trial, and then when found guilty, we can then work on tax evasion and larceny and things like that. But let's see what we have first, because the first battle is going to be mighty. But that's where the money is, and that's where the victory is, and that's where the independence is for you guys. That's all these, movements, if you will. They start at this grassroots level, and people don't stop, but it's focused on the issue. So I'm 61, was born in 60. When you had all the segregation and stuff going on in the South, it started as, voting, being able to be in the bus anywhere, not sitting at the back of the restaurant, being able to go to hotels. Stuff like right now, you'd assume couldn't even be possible, right? Couldn't even be like possible. Now, I have kids older than you, right? I have grandchildren. So you say, yeah, but for me, who grew up in that shit, right? You'd say, man, have we come a long way. But it wasn't anything that happened fast. So the real segregation movement in this is to figure out what happened that day and the events that led up to flicking that switch. That's what really, really matter to us, right?
Yeah.
Because it matters that we can find who did it and we get made whole. We can find out who did it and make sure this shit doesn't happen again. Because right now, there's been nothing done to change anything that this can't happen again. And it could happen again and again and again. And the next time it happens, I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't happen again. But it can, because nothing's been done to change it. And if you don't change it and you don't fix it, then all hell really breaks loose. So why doesn't everyone want to be on the front of the spear on this rather than behind? And be, if everyone wants to be part of something great and part of something to democratize the thing, be on it in the front rather than after there's an absolute disaster saying, yeah, we should have done what these guys said. Yeah, we should have done it, but it wasn't a coherent bunch. They were just mumbling all sorts of theories that we viewed as crazy. So if you focus specifically on what the issues are, they can't box you off as doing something crazy. You come off as credible. And you may not all have gone to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or done all the stuff that these people have done, but you know right from wrong. You know right from wrong. And what happened to you, even amongst all my hedge fund buddies, every one of them, to a man or a woman, says what happened was really wrong. No one has the guts like myself to actually stand up and put their name and their body of work behind you guys, because it just puts them at great risk. But I don't have a business and I'm not getting paid and I don't give a fuck, because I believe in what you guys, I believe that you guys were horrifically badly screwed. That's what I know. And I'll do what I can to try to help. But that's the way it has to get. I mean, you start with 1 gallon of sugar water and you turn it into 8 ounces of syrup, right? You need to boil it down and get everyone, in my mind, to really focus.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And people like myself, I mean, like, I'm obviously don't have such a storied career as yourself, but like I saw it and I was like, whoa. Seems like something crazy went on. And then of course, like, it brings up memories of being awkwardly at the Thanksgiving Day table in 2008 and hearing my parents and their friends talking about just how everything was basically fucked. So for me, and I know there's truly are millions of other people out there who are very specifically interested in this fight to hopefully level out the playing field and shed light on what happened and hopefully fix it for ourselves and future generations. I know we're coming up on our time here, so I want to leave you with one question. In January, and really what's been going on, but related to the stocks, AMC, GME, and just the debacle in more of a general sense, what is your confidence level that in some way, shape, or form, there was a combination of prime brokers, market makers, and potentially government-related regulators who completely fucked over, defrauded, and messed up the entire situation at an illegal, illicit, nefarious level?
109% confident that happened.
That is absolutely insane.
109%.
Wow.
109% that if I led the inquiry or I led the commission, I would find wrongdoing of drastic proportion by somebody. I'm not saying everyone was in on it. I'm not saying everyone was part of crime in the casino, but there was enough there that caused an unprecedented shift for something that's never happened. 100%, without a doubt. And the reason I say the 109% is how fast this got swept under the rug. They had the circus hearings, which were a complete circus. everyone, the senator from the great state of Arkadelphia, Arkansas, came in and said the markets work, everything's great, this, that, and the other. Everyone wiped their hands of it, and that's been it. No one ever hears about it anymore. It never comes up anymore. Everyone's holding their breath for the SEC report. I mean, if you hold your breath long enough, you'll die. There's going to be nothing really in that which is going to provide a smoking gun, because former SEC guys, and many of them, work at Citadel. It's just like the old PALS Act. I mean, I have friends. No, I'm not going to say that. That's not true. I know people who work at the SEC. I know people who work at all sorts of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know how things go, and it doesn't have to be as bad as slipping money under the table. But everyone will say, yeah, these people got screwed. Yeah, they got fucked. But, we did it for the greater good of the system. If we didn't do this, the whole thing would have blown up. And it just happens. But it's not right, because I've been on the wrong side of plenty of these deals, and it's not good. And you don't need a crisis or a blow up to solve a problem in a situation. You should do it when things are like this and the markets are high and people are giddy and there's no stress on the system. This is the time to fix it, not when we have the next one. Not when we have the next one. So that's kind of sort of how I see it. I mean, and I'll do more of these with you whenever you want. We can get into stocks and we can get into different things, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, I'm here to try to help.
Yeah, I know personally, I'm more than ready to keep fighting. I know there's millions of other people willing to fight. And as this story develops and as we uncover certain stones and rocks and see what's going on, more than happy to bring you back on. In the meantime, while we're waiting for those next big drops, what is the best way to people hear what you have to say, follow you? I know you have a Twitter. I'll make sure it's below you in this entire interview. Yeah, but is there do you have a website or anything like that you want to shout out?
I don't have a website. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I don't have any of these other fancy things. I'm just at Alderlane Eggs. That's how you get a hold of me on Twitter. I have an open DM, and if you play nice, I'll give people my Gmail. But that's all I have is the Twitter.
Okay.
And no. The other thing is, people don't have to agree with me. It's totally fine. They can agree with some. They can disagree with some. But I mean, I think the one thing we all need to do is everyone needs to just have the same set of facts. I'm not entitled to my set of facts, or people who disagree with me aren't entitled to their set of facts. We all have to operate on the same set of facts, but people are entitled to their own opinion. And I can't tell my dogs I can tell no one what to do. And I can only try to play it square myself, but I'm here to help. I mean, I'm here to help, but don't accuse me of being on the take for anybody, because that dog doesn't hunt. It's never hunted, and it sure doesn't hunt now.
Yep. I can at least speak for my community. I feel like that's been completely cleared up in this. And for me personally, I'm happy that you're willing to share your time and your knowledge of some of the shit that's actually going on that seems to be absolutely crazy. And
look, we can have a dozen of these, and at least people will know what they're dealing with and what can go on. I mean, we can have many, and I think where this all begins is education. And I've spoken at Harvard, spoken at Stanford, I've spoken at Yale, I've spoken at Columbia.
Wow.
So I can talk this stuff, and I've experienced this stuff. And I think the more people know, the better their chances are going forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, overall, thank you so much for your time today, and I'm more than happy to bring you on in the future. Thank you so much, and hey, best of luck in the markets.
Well, here we go.